Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we record this podcast, the Wadawurrung people. We pay our respect to elders past and present. Hi butterflies, my name is Chloé Hayden and this is my very first ever episode of my very first ever podcast, What the Actual Holy Guacamole Heck on Toast. I am so excited and just between you and me, immensely nervous. I am usually on the other side of the chair when it comes to this sort of stuff. This is my first time being like the host, the leader, like the one in the chair. This is so exciting and oh my god, what the heck. I am very excited and very nervous. I need you guys to help me. I need you guys to be on this road, on this ride, on this crazy what the heck roller coaster with me because your girl's autistic. Your girl's neurodivergent. I couldn't even speak properly until I was 16 and even now I can't even speak to people. I can't speak to a single person and now I'm speaking to like a whole lot of single persons. That's crazy. Thank you so much for joining me on this little journey, on this little adventure that we're on together. I'm so excited as well for who my first guest is. Guys, this is such a cool first guest. I'm so excited for you guys to meet them. My first guest on Boldly Me ever is Lizzie Velasquez. Lizzie is a motivational speaker, YouTube personality, anti-bullying activist, and author. Lizzie lives with an incredibly rare condition that, among other symptoms, prevents her from accumulating body fat and gaining weight. You might have seen some of her viral TED Talks, which have over 12 million views, or know her as an activist who stood up against cruel trolls. When Lizzie was just 17, she found a video calling her the world's ugliest woman on YouTube. She's used her own experience to inspire others and is a truly all-round, brilliant, incredible human. Lizzie joins me now from one of my favorite places in the entire world, in Texas. Lizzie, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been such a fan of you for so long. I'm so incredibly honored that you are here and that you are with me right now.
No, thank you so much.
Of course. So before we properly get started into it, one of the questions that I want to ask you and that I will be asking all of my guests is, what is your current hyperfixation? It could be a person, a thing, a topic, a hobby, a movie. What are you obsessing over at the moment?
Oh, there's so many things. I think my current one probably is TV shows.
Okay, what are you watching?
I have a very wide variety of things that I really like, but right now, currently, Succession has been my entire world, and it's like all I care about and think about, and I care for these people as if they're real, even though they're not. So right now, that's my number one thing.
Oh, love it. Amazing. So to get started, first of all, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Lizzie. I was born with a rare syndrome that doesn't allow me to gain weight. So I grew up in a body that looks very different from everyone else's and in a body that's a lot smaller than everyone else's. And because of that, had to deal with a lot of name calling and pointing and whispering and that kind of thing growing up. Once I was a teenager, I was introduced to the world of cyberbullying. And after that, sort of just decided I don't want the world to tell everyone else who I am. I want to tell the world who I am. And when I made that decision, never in a million years would I think that I would be telling the world who I am in the way that I'm doing it or I have done it in the past. So it's been very, very surreal. I think the biggest blessing is the fact that I am able to live a dream life that I never even knew I had or wanted. And so now I'm able to go out and not only just tell my story of who I am and just remind other people that you don't have to look just like everyone else or have the same amount of money in your bank account that other people have or have all of these people who are following you. You don't need to have that. If you have a goal or mission in mind, no matter who you are or where you look like, you can accomplish it.
I love that. That's such a beautiful message.
Thank you.
When you started kindergarten, you didn't see that you looked any different to anyone else around you. What was that first day like? Can you bring us back there?
Yeah, so I was 5 years old and I remember being very excited. I remember my parents letting me pick out my outfit, and I had a regular school backpack that a kindergartner had, but because I was so small, it looked like a giant turtle shell on my back. And I remember just being so excited, and I owe the absence of fear going into school to my parents. And I think it's something that I always want to highlight. I don't have actual human kids. I have dog children. So I can only speak from my personal experience of what my parents did with me. And that was basically not sending me in with this fear of, when you're going to start school, be prepared because other kids are going to be scared of you, or they might say this, or they might do this. They never did that. I'm sure they wanted to, and I'm sure that it was very hard for them to not tell me all of these things. But instead, prior to starting school, they kept me around other kids my age. My mom babysat from our home. And they never hid me away. They never made me like stay inside, or if we were going out places that they would like cover me up, or like, cover me with their body. It was never anything like that. It was always just completely normal. And one of the main reasons they did that is so that I could see I can do things just like everybody else. But the hard thing is, when I started going into this new environment around other kids my age who had never seen me before. And in one world, I was Lizzie, and I was, normal and just like the people I was around, and no one treated me different. And when I started school, I was a different version of Lizzie. And that was one where I had no control over, or even, I was 5 years old. I didn't have the capacity to really understand, why are they afraid of me if I'm not even doing anything to them? So it was very hard for me to sort of understand the reality of this new part of my life. But overall, I'd say it was good, but it was also very, very eye-opening for a 5-year-old.
Yeah, of course. And then going through kindergarten and then throughout high school, first of all, your family sound like the most incredible, beautiful, supportive people. How has having that beautiful, good support network impacted your journey on self-acceptance and self-love, particularly going into school?
My parents' support has been the number one reason of why I am the person I am today. And I think they sort of started that foundation without realizing it when I was born. Because when I was born, I had to be born early because I stopped growing. And the doctors had to do an emergency C-section. I was very, very, very small. They were shocked that I was alive because there was no amniotic fluid around me.
Wow.
And I came out screaming. And I feel like that was also a sign of what my life was going to be like, screaming at the top of my lungs, even though I was very small. And they didn't have any definite answers. So instead of, telling my parents that this may happen or this might happen, they sort of just went the negative route and basically just said, you're gonna have to take care of her the rest of your life, and she won't ever be able to do anything on her own. And there was nothing to sort of back that up. And it was just like, this is what's going to happen. And so my parents basically just said, she's our daughter, and no matter what, we're going to take her home and raise her and love her to the best of our ability. And that's literally what they did.
Was there a moment where you've traveled the world and spoken about your story to quite literally millions of people? Your TED Talk has like 12 million views now, like a ridiculous amount of views.
Yeah.
Was there a moment, either doing your talks or meeting people or within your journey, within sharing your story, that made you go, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I am here for a reason?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can tell you the exact moment that it happened. So I didn't know motivational speaking or public speaking was a thing. I didn't know it was a job. I knew nothing about it. When I was a senior in high school, I was planning to go to college to major in computer engineering, because that sort of was like my first love. And that's where I wanted to go. And I wanted my career to have something to do with computer engineering. And that was the goal. That was the plan. And there was a day where we had underclassmen in my high school who weren't taking a test that everyone else was taking or something. And one of the assistant principals pulled me aside, and she said, we need to like have an assembly of some sort for these kids who aren't taking a test. do you think you can go up there and tell them your story? And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? Like,
And
what?
was this the first time you were asked to do like any sort of
Yeah.
public speak? Wow, that's in front of your peers? That's terrifying.
Yes, that was my exact reaction. I was like, no. First of all, what story? Second of all, they're not
Right.
going to listen. Like, these are like younger, like 2 grades younger than me. They don't care what I have to say. There's going to be 400 of them. And they were like, don't worry, like, just go home and think about it. Talk to your parents. Like, we just want you to tell them your story. And she just kept saying that. And this was an assistant principal that I had a close relationship with. And like, I knew her and she knew me. And so, you know, it wasn't anything that was just like thrown on me. But I talked to my friends and they were all very supportive. And they all just kept saying, you should do it. We'll go. We'll sit in the front. We'll support you. So I decided to do it. And I wrote out a speech word for word and I printed it out and typed it out and put it in a folder. And the day that I went to go present, oh my gosh, I was so nervous. And the teachers kept telling me like, they're probably going to start talking or they'll be rowdy, but don't worry, we're going to be standing on the sides and we'll make sure that they stay quiet. And all I kept thinking was, they're not like, this is going to be so bad. Why did I do this? So I go up on stage and I take out my folder and I sit down. I don't even stand. I sit down and I just like sort of look down and I'm holding the microphone and I just start reading from what I wrote. And halfway through, it dawned on me that you could hear a pin drop in there. It was so quiet. And so I looked up. And I could see that there were like kids with tears in their eyes and they were just like hanging on every word that I was saying. And in that moment, I think it just absolutely hit me because I was so convinced that nobody would know what it's like to be in my shoes because they're not me.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, I realized that you don't have to look like me to know what it's like to be bullied. Or to know what it's like to feel insecure or that you're not good enough or to want to do all these things, but you can. And so I sort of just put the folder down. I closed it. I wasn't done reading. I closed it. And I just started talking to them. And I don't know what came over me. I don't know how I did it because I'd never done anything like that prior to this talk. And as soon as I was done, I knew instantly, like, this is my plan in life. Like, this is what I meant to do. So I went home that night and I Googled how to be a motivational speaker. And I just read everything that I could get my hands on. And I watched every video I could of any speaker. And I took notes of, do they have note cards? Do they print it out? Do they have a video in the background? Do they show photos? Do they have all of these things? And so then I thought, there's only so much I can learn just by watching and reading. I need to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a website that night as well, like a speaker website. I didn't know what I was doing. I was still in high school, and this whole thing, like, this was all in one day. And I emailed different places, local places around me, and basically just said, this is my story. If you need a speaker, I'm your girl. I never said, this is literally the only speech I've done. I don't know what I'm doing. I really just need practice. But I started out small and locally, and more people kept calling, and I started finding my groove with speaking and testing out everything that I saw. And so from then on, that sort of just became my life.
How long after that talk at your high school did you start doing motivational speaking full time? Like how?
It was like a few weeks after.
A few weeks?
Yeah.
Oh my God, girl! You said I've figured it out. Now let's go. No time to waste.
I feel like whenever I have an idea in my head, I'm like, you're gonna do this. Like, there's no way you're not gonna do this. You have to figure it out. And it was terrifying. It was so scary because I did not know what I was doing, and I didn't charge anyone anything. I also It was more so just because I wanted the experience and I needed to figure out what works best for me. So yeah, that's how it started.
You share your story so outwardly, and you know, like you were saying, it's so easy to put on the face and to show the highlight reels and to say, oh, this is where I am now. And you are such a bold person, but I would love to know how you protect yourself when you're not feeling bold and when those comments still do come in that make you, or that try to make you feel less than.
You know, I think it happens more than people think that it does.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't share it as much as I used to, because before, if I would see bad things, I would like post about it and call attention to it. But now I think I've been having to deal with this in some form for so many years now that my body just sort of goes into like, oh, this is happening. So this is what you're going to do to like, you know, overcome it, which sounds kind of cheesy, but I'll see it and I'll read it. I don't want to ignore it for some reason. I always have to read it. And then I sort of shut down. Even if it's for like a few minutes, I just shut down. And I allow myself to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
For as long as I need, because I just got to get it out. I think before I just sort of pushed it under the rug and it just kept piling up to the point where it was just like, I can't do this anymore because I wasn't processing any of the emotions that I was feeling. I was just like, I'll deal with this later. And so now if I see something bad, I'll read it. I will sort of shut down for a little while, press pause. And I have to remind myself to sort of just, I have this vision in my head when things like this happen of me sort of just stepping outside of my world and looking at it. Because when we're angry or we're mad, it's so easy to just sort of go into defense mode and you want to like explain everything or like fight back and, you know, do all of these things that might not really change anything. But when I'm able to sort of just step back and look at my life and be like, okay, the person who's saying this, you don't know who they are. They probably don't know anything about you. And so, yes, you have the right to feel the way that you do. But at the same time, like, just keep going. Just keep going. You're going to see this again soon, but just keep going.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it. I've never actually considered that because I think I'm quite similar where if I see a hate comment or something nasty or even just someone that's uneducated and just doesn't understand what they're saying, it is so easy to focus on that one comment rather than like the 10,000 nice ones that are in that same section. You always focus on that nasty one and I'll screenshot it and I'll relook at it and I'll like fixate on it and be like, why did you say this and what can I do to change myself so you don't say this anymore? And it's so easy to fixate on those nasty things. But I think it's really beautiful what you said about actually just allowing yourself to feel sad and to feel upset that they did that and to allow yourself to feel pity and sympathy for yourself. I think that's a really beautiful way of looking at it.
I mean, it definitely took me many, many years to figure that out because that definitely was not my way of thinking for a very long time. But now it just makes so much sense to me because yes, I have the right to feel sad. This wasn't nice and someone said it about me. And that doesn't make me weaker because I'm allowing their words get to me. And I think that's also the big thing, like knowing that because you're letting those words in doesn't mean anything like less about you. It's just that you're allowing yourself to process it.
Of course. Is there anything that you do to help protect yourself? What do you do to kind of just look after yourself as well as obviously allowing yourself to feel things?
I think overall, the whole pressing pause thing has been really, really helpful for me. I think all of us have formed these new ways of coping, especially with how crazy the last few years have been.
Yes.
But now I think I really, really, really value and cherish moments of not having to be an adult for a little while. And that is something that has completely changed my life because I've always been very, very independent in all aspects of my life. And I would much rather figure it out myself, whether it's super hard or, you know, anything. I'd rather like, I can do it. I'm going to do it. And I realized that that's not always the best strategy. especially because I know I do have an incredible support system. But I now know that if I feel overwhelmed, no matter with whatever it might be, to be able to press pause and just say to my parents or to my friends, like, I can't be an adult right now because it's very, very overwhelming. And yes, I am independent, but I need a break from being independent. I'll get back there, but right now I need to be able to depend on you. What that looks like, probably nothing, because it's probably just me like curling up in my bed and, watching something or listening to music. So the physical part of it probably doesn't look anything different, but for me, it just makes the world a difference.
And allowing yourself to rely on that support network. I think particularly as like someone that is disabled myself as well, I know that like for so much of my life, I have had this idea that I am already a burden to the people that are in my support network. And I have this idea that like I'm already more than what the other people in my life are, and I have higher needs and higher support needs than the other people in my support network. So if I'm like, oh, my support needs are even higher today, for a long time I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone that because I don't want to have to be even more of a burden than I already am. And I've brought that up to like my fiance and my mum and my dad and my siblings, and they're like, we love you. It's our job to look after you. And when I'm in a bad place, you're going to look after me. And I think so many humans, disabled or not, have that same mentality of I have to be independent all the time. But you can't do that. Independence isn't something that is part of the human function all the time. We have to rely on each other. That is literally what humanity is.
And it's one of those things too where like at the end of the day, forcing yourself to be that independent, what are you going to get from it? You're not going to get a reward for completing something on your own when you're able to reach the finish line, but you have nothing left because you're completely drained. So it's one of those things where it's sort of like a pride and ego thing, which I fully admit that I will allow take over and just say, I need to be able to do this on my own when I know I have so many people. And I think the greatest example of that for me is if there were any times where I need to go to like the emergency room or something, I feel bad having anyone with me because the whole time I'm thinking, are they okay? Are they comfortable? Do they want to leave? Are they hungry? Like I feel bad. I'm laying on a bed and they're sitting on a chair. And so I think that's sort of like a one way that I kind of relate to all of those feelings.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's so important for everyone to understand that it actually is extremely courageous to show your vulnerability. Like there is nothing weak or cowardly about saying, hey, you know what? I need to step back and I need to rely on you right now. It is actually, honestly, I think it is the bravest thing that you can possibly do.
I completely agree. I mean, over the last year or so, I feel like I've fully embraced that. And it's been my first time. And I remember specifically having this conversation with my parents. And it was a time where I was going through a lot of depression and anxiety and finally speaking up after hiding it for 2 years. And not even my best friend knew. And every day, and I was waking up and stressing and thinking, how am I going to hide this from everyone today? And so once I finally, opened up and I told my inner circle and was finally like, I can't continue to live my life this way. And after that, it's like, it was the biggest and best game changer of my life. And I realized looking back now, like, what was keeping me from doing that? And it was embarrassment. It was not wanting to seem weak. It was not wanting anyone to think less of me. And so now, knowing that I spoke up and I told my people what was going on, and I spoke up and I went to see a doctor and I started medication and I stopped hiding from it, that it started really changing.
You talk early in one of your TED Talks about the benefits of your condition. 9 years on, have you discovered any more benefits?
I don't think so. I feel like it's sort of just become so normal that I don't really know anything different. I think the only thing might be I'm able to like curl up in any small spaces. So I love, like, I love laying down. No matter what I'm doing, I love laying down. And so if I'm like on an airplane or anywhere really, I mean, I'm small enough to like curl up in a little ball. And
Wait, that's low-key like a massive benefit though. Like, that's so good.
I can go bed out of anything that I'm at or on. So I think that's the one.
Were you like an absolute boss at hide and seek as a kid then?
I didn't really play that much. There were times where I would like play the card of like being visually impaired. And so if I was like, I was like, oh, I can't see.
Oh my God, I did the same thing growing up autistic all the time. Like if someone said something silly, I'd be like, I'm autistic, I don't understand what you're saying. Or like if there was like a situation, like if someone was like, oh, like come to this party. I hate socializing, dude. I'm like, I don't want to talk to strangers. I don't want to be in a weird room with people I don't know. So I'd be like, oh, like just like the sensory levels are just going to be a bit much for me there. Like I would use the heck out of my autism card all the time.
Oh, I do all the time. I never had to do chores growing up because I found a reason for everything. I didn't do dishes because I was like, well, what if there's like a knife and I can't see it and I'll like hurt myself? Or emptying the clothes out of the dryer. They were too heavy. I couldn't do it.
I do the same thing with the vacuum cleaner. I still don't vacuum ever because I'm like, it's too noisy for me. Like, and it is, but like, I probably could. Like, I hope my family don't listen to this podcast, but I'm like, it's too much. Like, I can't do it.
Oh, my brother and sister hated it. They knew I was lying. They knew it. But now, as an adult, I'm sort of like a clean freak. So it's completely opposite.
Making up for lost time.
Making up for lost time. But yeah, I definitely knew when to play the card when I needed it.
So you've got a documentary out. You've done TED Talks. You've written 4 books. How old are you again?
34.
Okay, 34 and written 4 books. Yeah. That is, like, what an achievement. Incredible. What's next?
I've had my heart set on creating a kids series, whether it's an animated show type of series or whether it's an animated a kids book series. And I want it to be where all of the main characters have a disability that you can see or that you cannot see. Because when I was growing up, my dad would take me in front of my class on the first week of school, and he would basically introduce me to them. And he would say, hey, this is Lizzie. She doesn't look like you, but she's just like you, blah, blah, blah. And it helped. It made a huge difference for the kids that were in my class because kids are afraid of what they don't know. So if you're able to explain to them, this is why she looks like this and, she's normal, she's just like you. It really, really helped. And I wasn't being made fun of as I was before we started doing this. And so my goal is to have this series be the introduction that my dad was for me.
That's incredible and so immensely important. Like, I know we didn't really touch on this, but I'm sure that growing up for yourself, and I know growing up for me as well, I never saw myself represented anywhere, whether it be in person or in media or on telly or in books that I read. And not only did it make it very difficult for me going like, well, I can't see myself, therefore am I supposed to exist? But it also made it for my classmates and my peers and the other people around me going like, I have no idea what's going on with you because I have never seen you anywhere else either. It's so important that we have this and that I don't know what it's like in America, but I know in Australia 1 in 5 people are disabled and that those statistics are probably much higher due to invisible disabilities, mental health conditions, all that sort of jazz. But it is a very normal part of the human genome. It is a very normal part of humanity and society. So creating it to be normal is so important. And I hope that you do that series or that book or that whatever it is because I'm going to promote the heck out of it and I think it is so important.
It's so scary. It's scary bringing an idea to life, but I'm excited.
I think it's incredible. And you've done 4 books, a 5th one, piece of cake. It has been so incredibly wonderful speaking to you and listening to your story, Lizzie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Before we wrap up, I do something called a Boldly Me 3, and it is 3 quick-fire questions that I'm going to ask every single one of my guests. You are the first episode. You are the first person. So I'm really excited to see how you kick it off for us.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yay. Okay, so the first question is, what is one song that never fails to make you feel happy?
Oh, Brave by Sarah Bareilles.
Oh my goodness, when I was a teenager, I would scream that song at the top of my lungs. That perfect answer.
Oh, so good. So
good. Number 2, it is, what is one piece of advice that you would give your 13-year-old self?
Be yourself, because this isn't what your life is going to be like for the next few years. Your life is going to change. And as long as you are still you, that's all that really matters.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Number 3, I'm really keen to hear the answer for this one. If you could be any Disney character, who would you be?
Oh, Belle.
Oh, I love that answer. Any reason?
I've always just had a special love for her ever since I was young. I was Belle for many a Halloween. And I think just her sweetness in loving things that aren't considered beauty in other people's standards has always been something that really, really just gets me.
I love that. I think that is a wonderful answer. Thank you so much for joining me, Lizzie. It has been an absolute honor and an absolute privilege having you today. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from Texas.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very, very much.
It was so incredible to have Lizzie on my podcast. I think she was such a perfect first guest, wasn't she? It was so exciting to have her on. I love her. I've loved her for such a long time. I think she's just such an incredible, beautiful human being. And something that I loved in that talk that we had was how she shared that it is okay to reach out and to ask for support and to rely on your support network. It's literally called a support network for a reason. It's so important to understand that you are not a burden, that you are not exempt from needing help. It is so courageous to reach out and to seek help and to rely on your people, on your chosen family, on your chosen support network. It is not cowardly and it is not weak. In fact, it is the bravest thing that you as a human being can possibly do. So make sure that you are doing that. Thank you everyone so much for listening to the first ever episode of Boldly Me. How exciting. I hope you liked it. Please let me know if you liked it. I'm like a seal. I need constant praise and approval to know that I'm doing well. So come message me on Instagram. Comment on however you do it. Rate it and review it and show it to your friends. Please, I am begging you. Make sure we get more episodes. Most importantly though, be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Stay hydrated. And most importantly, do whatever makes you feel happy. See you later.